Hello, and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. I'm an analytical hypnotherapist as well as an astrologer, and I am so excited because I have, I don't know, maybe I should let you guess what my guest does, because if you look closely behind her and you can see to the left, just to the side of her, you might guess, but it is Caroline Evans, who is a herbalist. Welcome, Caroline.
Hi. Yes, indeed. Yes, I've spotted. I've got a bit of St. John's wort in the background to added intrigue. But yes, I'm a herbalist. I'm a naturopath and a nutrition consultant as well. But predominantly, we're herbalist, and yeah, we love it. Love it.
Well, I got so excited when this came through my letterbox.
It
is so beautiful, discovering the herbs of summer, seasonal medicinal herbs. And I love it because not only does it have wonderful information, but it is utterly beautiful. And I can't think of a better way for someone who is wanting to make use of plants to get started than to pick this book up, because it's so simple. What made you decide to write this?
Well, just like you say, it's just simple. And I think that, it feels like there's a real drive within me and within a lot of us herbalists and light workers to get the information out that we need to heal ourselves. I mean, I really am. I've always been a real warrior of helping people to heal themselves, because I believe that everything we need is on this planet. But oftentimes we don't know what we're looking at, and we're also told to mistrust what we're looking at as well. Don't trust your body, don't trust, nature, and I know both of those things will not fail you if you just trust the process. So, being a herbalist, I'm very lucky that I've gone through the training and as all that it takes, but also the years of experience with clinical practice. It makes such a difference to know what the herbs do in real life. How does the herb act when you grow it, and how does it act on the body or in the body when you give it to a patient? So I thought the book was just like, it's a way in there. You've got remedies, and it will teach someone how to make like simple home remedies, but to make them properly. So there's no kind of like guesswork. You're actually able to make your own apothecary, which is, basic as it is, but it's a good thing to know how to make elderberry syrup. Then you're set for the winter. Calendula oil, how to use that for yourself, for scars, etc., for grazes, etc. But yeah, I think it's just the knowledge that we're here to give, and not everybody can do the training in herbal medicine. So it's a way to get it across without, you don't need to be a herbalist, and also you don't need to do the years of training, but also you don't need to risk yourselves or other people by giving them the wrong thing, because there is a lot of stuff online, and a lot of it is hocus pocus, like really real hocus pocus, not the hocus pocus that I practice, but it's really this stuff. So yeah, I thought it was essential to get this information out, to make it simple. Herbal medicine is simple, and to get people in tune with nature, which is a big thing with me. It's like, I noticed that in lockdown in this country, when we had lockdown, people just went outside and were in nature. And it's like, that was just like the most obvious. It's like instinctively we all knew, like people knew, wow, that's what's going to heal me. It's right outside my doorstep, and it sounds amazing with the birds and the trees and the plants. And they're starting to notice now. I think it's really important that we keep reminding people of this planet that we're on. It's not all up here, it's here, and it's very tangible. Yeah.
What I love about herbal medicine is that it's so accessible. And we've been taught to be afraid. We've been taught to be afraid that we're going to misidentify something, or that if we ingest it, it's going to be harmful to us. And yet we seem quite happy to swallow pills with pages and pages of potential side effects, just because we're told they're safe. And yet, as I say, if you read, there's pages of possible side effects, which are actually quite frightening. So this is what has really got me hooked. And I love that since I've been on this journey, which is less than 6 months, my fridge has got all sorts of wonderful things in it, including an insect repellent that works. And so I think for me, it's so empowering. And that's why I invited you on, because I wanted other people to feel empowered, to be able to take care of themselves in the simplest ways, very simply. And just before we started recording, we talked about a previous guest on In the Light, the wonderful herbalist, Matthew Wood. And it was from his book that I learned about lavender oil. And it's something that I've always got in the house because I use it, because I've made my own face cream for ages and I scent it with lavender. And suddenly here was another use for it. And working on my allotment with brambles, I often get these nasty little infections or inflammations on my fingers, my fingertips, because of the thorns. And they magically disappear instantly when I put lavender oil on. That was me hooked immediately because it works. I put a little bit of lavender oil and you know what it's like when you get a thorn on your finger and it's sore and it's bothering you, but you get on with life because it's only a sore on your finger until it really bugs you and you think, a day later, and now it's almost a bit swollen. And then you put on a drop of lavender oil and within seconds, the pain's gone. And the red is
it's amazing.
Turning pink. I've never experienced anything like it.
And try that with burns as well. I mean, burns with lavender, it's unbelievable. It's really, I mean, I've done a lot of first aid, as you do as a herbalist, in my life, and people with severe burns, and the only thing we had available to us at the time, like when there was this accident, is like we just only had lavender oil. So I just literally threw loads of lavender oil at this lady and just to save her face, and we saved her face. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. I mean, this is nature. It's so potent, it's so powerful, and it's not damaging, I mean, but then there is an element that one does have to be aware and wary, and that's why there's certain herbs not included in the book, because we don't want anyone just going there, but there is so much out there that you can do. There's so much, like to know like how to help yourself with grazes, when you like plantain, it's just growing down. Like my kids always, they know now, like, okay, oh, I fell down, oh, where's the plantain? And plantain is a funny herb because it's called it's like a white man walking, because the Native American Indians, they say whenever the white man walks, you find plantain because they carry the seeds in their shoes. And you see in some places there are lines of plantain and there's just growing up. But that stuff, if ever there's an accident with kids, I just quickly pick it up, chew it, slap it on the wound, and my God, it's healed. I mean, we've done that with wasp stings, we've done that with grazes and scratches and all sorts of wonderful things that little people get up to. But yeah, it's really amazing. It's simple home remedies. Like you say, insect repellent. I mean, do you really need that DEET stuff? I mean, that's like Roundup, it's like, no way, I want my skin to breathe. And I mean, maybe that's the whole thing with this. It's like we've lost sight of how the body works, and we've lost sight of the fact that everything works together. I mean, I look around at the different seasons. That's why I wanted to produce these books. They're the different seasons, because they actually is showing us that, okay, in certain seasons the nature is producing detoxification plants, like, cleansing plants. Like in the spring, it produces cleansing plants like cleavers that will help to detoxify and get your lymph going, because you've been sluggish and lethargic like a bear, which is what Matthew Wood reminds me of, the bear, to be, you're being like that, and then it brings you to life in the spring, so like you take that in the spring and you become you become alive again. And there's, herbs they just are there, and it's just this connection with nature that just gets so lost. And yeah, we need to be reminded of it, because I do firmly believe that the way forwards is the way back in life. The way forwards, the way that we're heading is not a good direction, we really, or not the way that we're being led, should I say. The real way that we all want to go is this, to have a look at nature, to be with nature, to remember our roots, to sit in circle, this real essence of being at one with everything. Yeah, that's really important, and to know the seasons and to remember the seasons. I think that's essential, because nature is a teller on this.
Well, I found it really exciting when you just said that the different seasons give us different plants that different purposes. So how can I put this? Is there a plant theme running through the seasons?
A plant theme.
Because you
Well,
mentioned cleansing, plants and
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So is there a plant? Well, there's actually many. I mean, okay, so the spring is your cleansing, and let me think. And of course, yeah, so the cleansing, purging, also immune boosting is coming in the spring and in autumn time, interestingly, okay, which is also we often find, and this is slightly off subject but equally on, is that we find that people get sick, like, your kind of coughs and colds as the season changes. And that's the body's way of cleansing, of detoxing, of lightening its own load. And it wants to purge the system so it can move forwards with a lighter load and renewed cells. And that's the way it does. So you often find that, people, and especially like kids, when they grow, they suddenly you'll be have high fever over 1 or 2 nights. The next day, they're blooming inch taller. I mean, literally, it works like that. But the same with our bodies as well. We get sick, and the next day, we're coming into spring, and we're coming into summer, and then we're coming into autumn, and then we're coming into winter. We get sick on the change of seasons, which is very interesting. And that's where nature starts to, you get your fresh nettle tops already, fantastic for cleansing, really great. And also they're full of iron, we know, with nettle. So you need these extra minerals to fortify you through this changing times. Right now, it's interesting. Nettle, talking of nettle, nettle is in seed, and nettle seed is a fantastic adaptogen. I mean, in the West, we always think that all of the adaptogens, which mean herbs that help your body to adapt to stress, that they all come from the East, or they come from Ayurveda, and they come from China, and they have all these Panax ginsengs and all these things that will make you strong and give you energy. Whereas we have in the West, we have nettle seed, and that gives you energy. So I've noticed how much nettle seed there is this year, and there's a lot of cosmology going on as well, but it's just that it's almost like nature is really strengthening us up for this coming into autumn and this winter. It's really getting us this extra energy that we need, which is amazing. So I think it's not only is there a seasonal flow, if you like, but there's also a kind of, well, I do believe as above, so below. It's all happening at the same time. So I believe this is reflected in what's going on as well. So I've noticed certain herbs in the last 2 years are really prolific, more than ever, than I've noticed before. And that is nettle seed for one. So nettle seed is helping us to deal with stress like never before, which of course I've seen in my clinic. We need to deal with stress like never before. It's amazing. This is a number one thing. So, I mean, yes, so the flow, yes, we're detox. We are cleansing. There's a lightness in the summertime. So I'm thinking of the herbs of the summer. Summer is very much flavonoid. It's very much uplifting, and yeah, it's like we've done the cleansing, and now we're kind of got this lighter thing. If I think of I used to do a lot of essential oil distillation in the summer, because of course you've got all the sages, you've got all the lavenders, you've got the oreganos, the thymes, I mean the marjorams, and they're really all this distilling. They're all immune enhancing. They're incredibly antiseptic. So I suppose this is of course your insecty type. They're antiseptic, they're antibacterial, they're antimicrobial. So that's maybe where the summer is at. And then of course the autumn is coming into the berry time, where you've got the nourishing of the hawthorns. It's protecting the heart and the cardiovascular system and the circulation system as things start to slow down, because we start to speed up through spring. We start to awaken, and then we speed up through the summer. It's like full life. We're all out there. It's all yang, and then we come down, and the autumn really starts to nourish. We start nourish self with all those nutritional berries full of vitamin C, all these berries around that time. And then we come into winter, which of course we've got the end of the berries, the rose hips, and then we go to the pine, the eucalyptus, which is all your kind of like your respiratory and then your chesty herbs, and to get us ready to detox again. So yeah, it does. Nature does do that. It has this cycle of support. I think it's a cycle of support. So nature has always got our back. Yeah.
That's utterly beautiful. And it makes me think of how we refer to nature as Mother Nature, because it's almost as though it's set up, it precisely support us through the seasons. I'm still kind of reeling from the beauty of it, because it's really struck me listening to you. Okay, so let's think about sorry, I've got about 10 questions all at once here.
No
Just
worries.
trying to which one to go with first. And I guess the first one would be, because you were talking about nettle seeds.
Hmm.
And so how can we use nettle seeds?
Hmm. Well, picking them is the first trick. But yes, definitely with nettle seeds, picking them is, I'm teaching my kids how to grasp the nettle without getting stung. And they really do. Like, you know, they get their friends to do it now. It's like, hey, look, I can grab it, you know, like if you're strong, and it's a good symbol for life to pick nettle seed. And also nature has these symbols around it. So if you can grasp the nettle without being stung, it's like you can take on the life without, you know, with great courage and strength, you know, with a like kind of Archangel Michael energy. So yeah, but really, I mean, it's quite, it's just you hold your nettle and you pick your seeds, and then you would dry them or have them fresh. I mean, you can have them in a cup of tea, like in hot water, or you can just literally like dry them and have a spoonful every day. You know, that's the way it is. They tend to lose their sting definitely in hot water, and after they've been sat for a while, they're absolutely fine. I eat them straight. The seeds doesn't have quite the sting of the leaves. In fact, they don't, but you do find a little tingle on your tongue when you have them. But I quite like that tingle, you know. I'm someone that doesn't mind walking through nettles because I quite like it. It's like this thrill, you know. I always imagine back in the old days, my grand taught me this. She said that back in the old days, they would whip you with nettle leaves, which we know, right, to kind of aliven the circulatory system to stop arthritis. So when she got old, I was always threatening her to whip her with some nettle twigs just to wake her up. But yeah, so you can gather them. So just gather. I mean, now they're lovely, beautiful long droops, and you just grab them and like either pop them straight in your tea. Have a few a day, like have a few strands of them a day would be enough to sustain us through this changing period, especially with everything that's going on in the world. So, yeah.
You also were talking about how the young nettle leaves, for example, are very good. Can we lengthen that or get a second harvest of those young leaves by cutting, once they've seeded, can we cut them back at say this time of year and to get a fresh batch of new leaves?
We can. I mean, nettle is, I use nettle all year round. I mean, yes, you can take, so the idea would be, for now, it would be take the seeds and take the top. And that's, yes, absolutely, you're going to prolong the plant. So the more seeds you pick off one plant, you're going to prolong that plant. It's not going to die back until later on. And yeah, it does have to die back at some point. You know, everything has to go through the cycle. So, you know, we're like, no, don't go, but it does have to go at some point. But yeah, certainly you're going to prolong it. But just know that in nature, the energy of the plant right now is going to, like we're in summer, so the energy of the plant is going to the flowers, it's going to the seeds, because we're coming up to, you know, we've just had first harvest time, now we're coming towards, you know, we'll have midsummer coming up shortly, and then yeah, so basically we're in the second harvest time. So right now it's all about grain, which is seeds, and it's all about flowers. So yes, you know, like with my roses, if I cut off the roses, they come again. Okay, so the same with the nettle in this season, but as for next season, it will start to die down. So yes, but in this season, you can keep it going, but it will never quite have the leaves of the spring. It never quite has those leaves of the spring. That is the best time for nettle. When you want to be juicing your nettle is in the spring, when you want to be having your beautiful green juices with your cleavers, your nettle, everything in there. That's fantastic, chickweed. But yeah, you don't necessarily want to be juicing nettle now because you're going to have the lovely prickle thing. But your teas you can go to town with, and you can still harvest it for drying now for the winter, because you're going to need to keep your strength up during the winter, and that's where nettle is really at its best. So save those seeds now, and you know, yourself cut back the plant to save them for drying now, and then yes, off you're all set for winter and whatever life throws at you.
I love this. So now we've got the seasonal use for nettles, and it's interesting to know that no matter whether or not you're able to recover that young green of the nettles, or if you can recover that young green of the nettles, it's never the same as in the spring. Because recently I was looking for a really good organic dairy farm, and I was looking
Yeah,
at the
great.
ethos of different organic dairy farms, etc. And
Yeah.
all of them were saying that the milk is best in spring
Amazing.
because of the energy of the grass
Yes.
being different because it's new in spring.
Yeah.
So it's just made me think about that.
So that's interesting as well, just to interject there, because like we were saying, the different cycles. So if you look at your cycles of the year, and when many moons ago, I ran a herb garden in Cyprus and I planted biodynamically. And so you see that the spring is represented by the leaf, and the summer is represented by the flower, the autumn is represented by the berry, and the winter is represented by the root. So they are at their most potent in those times. So that's, yeah, makes sense.
So that would be the times to harvest those different types
Absolutely.
of the different parts of the plant, which brings me to a question. You kind of answered the question that I was going to ask, which was about the different parts of the plant. So I guess the next question I have is, besides nettles or nettle seeds, if we were to look around us right now,
Mm-hmm.
what would be good to be bringing in, and what would we do with it? Because we're now in late summer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
what's
Okay.
good now?
What's good now? So we still have some elderflower, but depends where you are. So if I'm looking around, I have a roof garden right ahead of me, but no, if I'm looking around anyway, I mean, what do we have? Well, we're coming up to apple season. That's not far off. But right now I'm looking at marjoram is in flower. Okay, so marjoram, your oreganos, those ones, so you can start to bring them in, dry them for your cuisine. I mean, you know, to be honest, kitchen herbs are as good as any other herb. A herb is a herb, whether you use them in cooking, it's great that you do. Lemon balm is definitely, it's in flower now, but you can gather it now. It's great. Gather the seeds of lemon balm, but also you can cut it back so you can save yourself some tea for later on. It's a very much an affinity with women. Lemon balm is beautiful, very refreshing, great for anxiety, all of this. So that's a lovely one. Calendula is out now. Keep picking off the flowers, and then the flowers will come back, the petals, pick off the petals, and then they come back, and keep off the petals to come back. Echinacea is in flower now. That's the, you want to dig up the roots of that. What else have we got here? Sage has just come out. Rose, we're at the end of rose, but rose is definitely out there now, so you can pick the rose flowers. I have things like solidago in my garden. I'm looking at the hedgerows right now. So in the hedgerows, there's a lot of meadowsweet around, a lot of meadowsweet. So that's a really great one to collect for pain. Okay, so that's a great one. Yeah, I had a friend of mine recently. He'd had a bike accident and he was in a lot of pain. And as I turned up at his house, I'm like, hey, you know, what's growing you is what's growing on your doorstep is curing you. And right just outside his gate was all this meadowsweet coming out the hedgerows. So I said to him, right, cut it back and just drink a cup a day, and that would be great medicine for you. So that would be lovely. Like, either dry that one now. What else? I've got my linden drying. Just looking around as well. What do I have now? Grape is coming up. See, there are all these medicines as well. Yes, lemon verbena, if you're lucky to grow verbena, that's also out at the minute. Mugwort is in the hedgerows, whereas my mugwort, I just picked some recently. Mugwort there, yeah, very herb of protection, but great. Great for well, just a magical herb. This is just a magical herb, just to drink. Very elevating, this one, really uplifting, but really great. All the artemisias are great for just cleansing the gut and keeping any lurgies away. Lavender, there's still a lavender farm full of lavender near me. Lavender is the time still now. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there's a lot of these. And like I said, it's the grains, time of the grains is right now. So, you know, we look at the medicine, like I've been collecting some, what do they call it, fat hen, which has these little, it's like a, you know, just foraging fat hen, and that's got some beautiful seeds on it, and I'm collecting the seeds to use as grain. It's like an alternative to quinoa. There's all of these that are going on right now. You've got barley, you can use barley water, that's a great remedy as well. And yeah, there's all of these coming out right now. So yeah, and of course we have raspberries. Let's not forget the raspberries are full on as out now. So yeah, the raspberries are definitely in full swing. So I think a dozen little birds have just landed right on my windowsill. It's very sweet. They have a little meeting place just there, because that's where I keep all my seedlings, if there's any left, because they're just looking around. I see they've been scurrying up the onions. But yeah, so it's, but there's lots around right now, but it is more about, you know, in the hedgerows, because we have had a really hot summer, so it's almost, yeah, it's almost pushed us up a good few weeks ahead. So I would say that right now I saw already on one of the trees, there's, in some places in the shade, at least there is any, there is some elderflowers in flower. And then I was in Glastonbury the other day, and there's elderberries there. I'm like, whoa, full on the bush. And then there's a blackberries there. I'm like, wow, we're already in autumn. Amazing. Like down in Glastonbury, we're in autumn. In Frome, just 20 minutes away, we're in summer. So it's quite amazing. You know, it's quite amazing. I used to laugh about that in Cyprus, that, you know, just 20 minutes the next village, or like 15 minutes away, there'd be a thunderstorm. And, you know, with you to be having a beautiful day, be nothing going on the whole rest of the day. So that is the case wherever we are in the world. So yeah, there seems to be quite an intensity of heat, certainly in the UK where I am at the minute. So things have changed.
You mentioned lemon verbena, which happens to be one of my absolute favorite herbs. I like to have the leaves in fruit salad,
Nice.
which is really nice. But you were talking about drying the herbs, and that makes me wonder about efficacy. So what is it that is most effective? Is it, do we lose, I guess what I'm asking is, do we lose some of the efficacy when we dry the leaves?
Yes. Like, for example, lemon balm is never quite the same once it's dried. It even loses its lemoniness. It's like, what a shame. Lemon balm is really the best fresh. But, you know, but then equally you could freeze it in ice cubes, and that's another way to preserve it longer. So there's different ways to preserve. I would say that to keep its efficacy, that's why we have tinctures as herbalists. Tinctures are certainly a way of keeping the herb for longer, but it does, I mean, you get rid of a lot of the water content, which is great, and to some extent, depending on the herb, as to whether you reduce its efficacy. I mean, not every herb is best when it's dried, okay, when it's fresh, should I say. You know, some are actually better when they've dried, like when turning into tincture, you know, we're still going to keep, like, for example, the Crataegus berries, hawthorn berries, they are better dried. You know, fresh, they're great. I eat them off the tree like that, but they're actually like really potent dried, and you can make a lovely tincture out of them. So it depends on them. But yes, not if you are to collect in its season. So for example, blackberries are better in September, right? They are. I mean, actually, I always leave them now, even though they're coming out now, because I have a superstition that to keep them for the fairies, you have to leave the blackberries for the fairies now and pick them in September. So I hope there's some, and then you've got to pick them before the end of September, because before the devil pisses on them. Apparently, that's the whole like, oh my God, I've set myself up for like quick panic attack blackberry picking. It's never been quite a relaxing affair as it used to be when I was younger, but it's like, quick, we've got to do it now. But yes, there are certain differences and degradations of certain herbs. Like, you do know that, okay, like oregano, for example, is incredibly potent fresh, but it's equally as potent dried. It is, but it just loses its efficacy after 2 years. It's not going to be as medicinal as it was then. So you are still going to get you're still going to get the potency. We don't really understand how potent nature is. We think, it's just a pretty backdrop, you know what I mean? It's a pretty backdrop. No, this is potent herbal medicine. This is real medicine here, you know. So it is as good as it is dried. I don't ever find a problem with dried. I mean, I dry for fresh. I dry my herbs that are fresh, like calendula. I've got a load of calendula here, and that's dried, but I wouldn't use fresh calendula on somebody's wound. I would use dried calendula. So it's still, you know, it's as potent, and in fact, you're missing the water content. So therefore, you're actually getting the therapeutic benefit. It's just the time it's spent sat in that box not being used is the time that it starts to degrade in shelf life. So
I see. Really, so it's the shelf life
rather than, yes, rather than that. Exactly. Yes.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. What about cooking, for instance? Because obviously we use herbs for cooking.
Yep.
And we know that enhances the flavor of our food, of course. Does cooking, I guess what I'm asking is, on a chemical basis or on a chemical level, what happens to a plant's potency when it's cooked?
Yeah, now that certainly is a way of degrading things, absolutely. So the classic example is garlic. Classic example. Like people, they put garlic and they fry it up with the onion at the beginning of the meal. Well, that's totally killed it. No therapeutic component at all. But if you put garlic in at the end of the meal, and you add it into your tomato sauce, for example, then that's really going to have potent antibiotic effects in your food. That's really going to be a great immune booster. What's more is if you cut that garlic open and you left it for 10 minutes open, like you cut the clove in half and left it for 10 minutes, then the allicin gets oxidized, and then that is the therapeutic component, and that needs to be oxidized, right? So that in essence that needs that, and then you can chop it in and add it at the end of the meal. So yes, some things you can, it depends on how you cook. Some people burn the hell out of things, you know, really. But yeah, generally things do get degraded. So for example, in making things like say elderberry syrup, you know, we have to be mindful. We do need to heat it, okay, but we have to be mindful for how long and how high the temperature is, as to whether we're going to degrade all that beautiful vitamin C that's in there that we want to contain in the honey or whatever container you're using for it. So you want to be able to keep it therapeutic for longer. But if you're to take a bay leaf, for example, and people have a dry bay leaf and they put that into cooking, that's still going to have its therapeutic component. It's going to start to lose it. Probably how, if you're having a slow pot in the oven, it's going to start to lose it maybe you know, an hour or so in. You would then put in fresh. So yeah, so I always like to serve, whenever I'm cooking, is add them in at the end. I mean, obviously you can add some at the beginning, of course, because you want that flavor through. It's a flavor thing. It's not therapeutic. It's just the flavor. It smells nice, it tastes nice, but it's not actually going to be healthy, beneficial for you. But if you put some in afterwards, like you're having your lemon verbena on your fruit salad, I mean, that's magic. That's beautiful. That's really getting the therapeutic component of that herb. That's beautiful. I'm gonna do that myself. I love it. I love it. What a way to have a lemon verbena. What a great idea.
So what happens then with tea when we make teas? Because obviously we've got the boiling water going onto the leaves.
Yep.
What happens to potency there?
Potency there, well, that's true. One should firstly do it off the boil, so you boil it and just do off the boil, and then you do, and ideally you would put something over your cup, because it depends. So for example, if you're having something like rosemary, so rosemary is like lavender, it's got a lot of flavonoids in it, and that's, you know, that's can condense into oil. So what would be beneficial is if you put a lid on it, then you basically the condensed oil will go back into it, and that's really got a lot of therapy in it. So that would be great. So ideally, which is why we generally have teapots with lids. It's a good way to have your tea. Okay. So it tends to be a good way. I mean, but you know, herbs are, so this is it. As a herbalist, we love our herbal teas because they cleanse and they flush. They really do. And it's not just the water doing that work. It is the herb doing that work. And yes, if you want absolute potency, the alcohol contained with a tincture is going to keep the potency of the herb for longer. Whereas in a tea, it's going to weaken it for sure. It's not going to kill it, but it's going to weaken it. It's just, it needs to be under boiling point. So we say, you know, take the water to boiling, and then we're just hoping someone will then put the lid on and it will still have its effect. So yes, you are losing some, but you're not losing a lot. I mean, that's why we also have infusions where it's like a slow heating, where you literally just like slowly heat it over a saucepan with a lid on, just slowly. That's a really great way of getting a lot of therapeutic component in the water without killing it with the heat and getting it too hot.
And would that be the same when you're doing, say, oil, when you're wanting to put the herb in the oil? The name escapes now.
You're making an infusion, basically.
Yes, an
oil as opposed to water. Yes, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Although oil so oil will keep it for longer than water. Okay, so there, when making oil, you do really want your herbs to be dried. So you don't necessarily use fresh calendula into your calendula oil, for example. You want to dry them and then put them in there, because then that really, otherwise, well, you can do it with fresh, of course you can, but it's just going to have less of a shelf life. So it depends how long you want that calendula to last, because the water with oil is going to obviously degrade the oil that is your medicine for longer. Yeah.
And if you were to heat the fresh herb in the oil, creating an
Yep.
infusion with
That way.
heat, would that
Okay, that way.
out?
Yes, that would, but of course, low heat is fine. Yeah, I tend to always, I always do my infusions in the sun, but that is 16 years of Cyprus. I'm like, I also, even in Britain, I'm like, well, where is the sun? Where's my sunniest windowsill? Or the little pot is out in the rain. I'm like, whatever, but I still do. But yes, of course, we need, you need quick medicine, and you want to make a lot. There's not enough time, and there's not enough windowsill space that you do need to do. You do need to heat it up. Yes, you're just going to have a little bain-marie or have a little bain-marie thing, and yes, it's just gentle heat, and that's fine. Gentle heat. It's a bit like the difference between like a dehydrator, which is working on 30 degrees or less, compared to a 180 degree oven. So it's that difference. You're keeping it in. And you're also extracting by warming it. You are like the sun as well. By warming it, you are pulling the therapeutic component out of the heat. But then if you there's that point where you don't want to kill it at the same time. You want it to pull out, just like the alcohol pulls out and draws out the therapeutic component. The sun will draw out, and as will the heat draw it out. But then you want to keep it at that so it doesn't boil over and therefore degrade. Hope that makes sense.
For people who are watching us, and this is
hopefully you're not confused,
whole world for them. I guess the reason that I'm asking you the questions that I'm asking is because I want people to see that there's no mystery here.
Exactly.
What we're talking about is as simple as cooking, in a way.
It is, exactly. And very pleasurable, yes.
Exactly. What we're saying here is there is goodness in these plants. And in the same way that we might be exchanging recipes for the tastiest use of certain herbs, we're saying there are different ways of extracting the goodness from these plants.
Yeah.
And that would be drying, freezing in ice cubes, if we're talking about calendula flowers.
Yeah.
And for those who are not familiar with the name calendula, that's your marigolds, your pot marigolds. There's the teas, making the teas, and we've discovered that perhaps it's better to, once the water's boiled, let it cool a little bit before pouring the herbs, and then covering to make sure that any volatile oils go back into the water. There's the possibility of using dried herbs in oils, steeping them in oil, warming it in the sun, or you could fresh herbs in that way, the fresh part of the plant, and just slowly eating the oil. So that's all we're saying, that these are all different techniques. And then there's tinctures, which is the equivalent of making an infusion, but with alcohol.
Totally.
So that then it's something that you have over the winter or when the plant isn't actually active. Yes. So how long does it take to make these things? We know that a tea could be made in a minute.
Yes, depends if you're drying it, then it can take a month to dry the herb. So yeah, there is preparation that's needed in everything, like even to make a macerated oil, for example, that can take anything between 2 and 4 weeks, depending on the season. To dry as well, like I was saying, drying herbs. I mean, I remember in Cyprus, like in the summer, great, I would hang up olive leaf branches, and that would take 2 weeks in the summer, and might even take 6 weeks, 2 months in the winter. And that's Cyprus. God, how many months I have to wait here? It is. So yeah, this does. So one does need to be actively on the case and checking your plant, and you learn, and you're going to make mistakes, and things are going to go off, and you're going to keep trying, and that's the way. But generally, I mean, I like the old school ways personally of I like to use lunar cycles, because I get very inspired anyway, instinctively, to make a lot of this on the full moon. I get inspired all these new ideas on the new moon, and then I really want to get around the full moon, before and afterwards, I'm like, well, now is the time to harvest, to collect. I just get it, it's there. I've been doing that so long now that it's just instilled in me, and a lot of people will feel that too. But generally, so a lunar cycle, so one full moon to a full moon, or the first of the month to the first of the next month, however you want to do it, wherever you are in the month, that's the best thing. So like a month is would be great. I like as well to, I mean, I sometimes leave things on my shelves for years and then I find them later. I'm like, wow, great. Like I found earlier this year, I had I'd used up no, I hadn't. I had some bought in plantain oil. I was like, oh no, and then I needed some, and then I found on my shelf, in my cooking shelf, where I have loads of things, but it's equally for me, cooking, food, herbs, all mixed in together. It's all there in my kitchen. I was like, oh wow, brilliant. I was so happy because I needed plantain oil at that moment in time for a formula. I was like, ah, perfect, it's just there. And it was like a year old, but it was totally right. It had never been opened. It was perfect. I was like, wow, this is great. So it doesn't really matter. And that's the way actually your apothecary should end up looking like. You should end up like having these really like, whoa, that one, okay, move the moldy ones. It's experimenting, and that's it. There is of course a right way, and that's where there is a right way, but everybody's different. That you find when you do it, you find your own way within the right ways framework, if you like. So this is the guideline, and then you find your own footing.
I think what you said about experimenting is really, really important. And I can remember a few months ago, and the first time when I tried to do a macerated oil. So this is what we were talking about as an oil infusion.
Yes.
Yes, I thought I had done everything correctly, but I was using fresh herbs. And what happened, of course, was that I got a moldy mess 3 weeks later. And I thought, oh, crumbs. I thought, perhaps because I'm using fresh, I might just try heating it, the heating slowly method. Yeah. And that beautifully, because I wanted that oil to make a salve, and I wanted it to make a cream. So I wanted it for two purposes. Right. And it was a wonderful learning process. It's just such an exciting thing to do. Isn't it? And once you've done it once or twice, it's not so daunting. It's never hard, but it is daunting when you first do it. That's what I learned, is that this is incredibly simple, but because it's not something that we have been accustomed to doing, it feels daunting, and it feels like we're going back in time, and but actually it's very, very simple. So for people who want to avoid their kitchens and aren't growing their own herbs, etc., how do they go about finding herbs? I mean, is a supermarket a good place? Is online a good place?
Yeah, well, the hedgerows are the best place, I think. But then for me, the hedgerows are the best place. Personally, that is the number one, because then you really do, and this is, well, certainly a message that I'm all about, is teaching people to get in touch with nature. So ideally there's a hedgerow, but if you're in the middle of Dubai, there's no hedgerows anywhere. I've just had a friend who's come back from Dubai, and she walked for miles and didn't pass a tree. I'm like, wow, okay, I get you. I used to live in the Middle East. I understand that one. But yeah, so yes, you can, of course. I would say supermarket herbs are a no-no generally, because you find that when you bring them home, they will die. But my mother seems to be the only person on the planet that can keep a supermarket herb alive when she pots it up when she gets home. So then she has it like outside in her balcony, and then she's there. So we can do. But if that's what you have, my veggie box now comes with basil. It's like great. And then as soon as it arrives, I put it in the freezer, because I know I'm going to need that basil for my lovely red pepper and tomato soup later on in the year. But I want to have that basil ready now, and that to me is the best way of keeping basil that I wanted in that form. So yeah, so yes, supermarket is great. Health food stores are a better option, okay, as a rule, and of course, because then you're more likely to get organic, because there is a whole, well, what did I was just writing up my autumn book recently, and on researching corn, 90% of corn is genetically modified. I mean, what? So really, I know people say, oh, what's the point of buying organic? There's a big point, trust me, because the medicine is in, and we were in Wales recently, and me and my son were walking through, like, I think it was 8 fields of corn. I'm like, wow, where did all this corn come from? Something quite haunting about a field of corn. It's like, whoa, like my son's like, there's definitely someone watching us in there. So what do you think it is? He goes, I think it's a mouse. So you're probably right. But certainly we found these big containers of chemicals, the fungicide that they spray the corn with. It's an easy grow, it's an easy money maker for farmers. Unfortunately it is, and that's just the way the world's going. So we really do need to look to organic 100%. So I would say health food stores, of course you can go online, but organic is the only way. You can buy from herbalists like myself, of course. Have we most herbalists will get organic, because we know that the effect that has on the body. I don't want to cause any hormonal disruption by what I've given you. So I'm very retentive on that. So yeah, there are amazing resources out there, but none of them are Google. I'm sorry, none of them involve Google. Well, maybe to say where can I get organic from, and Amazon will of course have their say, but really we have to use the world. We have to use the world that we live in for the greater good. So yes, you can find Amazon for sure is going to have organic herbs, definitely. I'm very surprised with what Amazon has, including my book, amazingly so. I was not so best pleased about that, but I went for it. It's the only way to self-publish for me. And so yes, they can. But yeah, I would always recommend to go organic, and health food stores are the best. Definitely, they are the best. And you get to know your local community, and that's just the way it is.
So let's imagine that there's something bothering me that's a little bit more complicated, and I would see a herbalist. What happens when I come and see you?
What happens in a consultation? Well, firstly, we give you an incredibly long form to fill in, which is very, because in a consultation, we start with the consultation form is very in depth, and we cover that in the consultation. I always say, I need to know everything that's ever happened to you ever, on every single level, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. And physically, let's not forget, no, because that's of course why you're coming. But basically, yes, we really do go in depth. I leave an hour and a half for a first consultation, and sometimes that can take 2 hours, because it takes a lot, because health does affect us on all levels, so we really do need that. So so in a consultation we're really trying to work out why is your diarrhea sporadic, or is it every single day, or do you get bloating with this, or is that associated with your cycle, or we try to we match the links. That's my job, is to connect the dots. So I was very good at that as a kid, so just connecting the dots, and that's what my job is. Something I do in consultation as well as I do iridology, where a lot of us herbalists do, and so we look at the iris and see kind of a long-term health plan. You can see in the iris someone's typology, if you like, about where they're going. If they're a cardiac iris type, it might not be the immediate what you're seeing in front of you, but you can see that, okay, for long-term support, this is what this patient needs. For long-term, long after you stop seeing me, you would need to keep supporting your heart, or your integrity of your intestines, or whatever. So it's quite different. I oftentimes ask patients if they have a copy of blood test results, if they have any of this. It's great. Or sometimes we do it, not necessarily. I'm not a functional medicine practitioner, I don't need it, but equally it's very good to see this stuff. We'll also look at people's nails, tongue, facial things that are going on in the face. It tells you a lot. Mine tells me that I've lived my life. Definitely, I wasn't a voyeur, I lived every minute of it. So and this, so there's lots of signs that will show me why one is getting the symptoms. So that's the balance. But even without the iridology, sometimes patients send me iris, the picture of the iris, which is fantastic if I'm seeing them online. But if I see them in person, that's easier. But it doesn't matter. If I see them online, we can still see, like I can see actually what's going on here. You have this nice ring around your iris, which is lovely. And that just shows, it's like you're very, you can be very single pointed in life. You know what you want. You can do that. That's on that level. It physiologically is different things, but yeah, so there's lots of things you can see. So then we would then put someone on a program of health of certain herbs to take maybe certain times of day, depending, sometimes before food, sometimes after food. Try not to make it too complicated, depending how complicated the case is. And then, that changes. And I tend to, I always say I work on being unemployed, because I want people off my books, because I know basically I don't intend for someone to rely on me, because the whole idea is that, you maybe need to see me like, 6 times or something. Some people, they're on my books for like 15 years. But then they check in with me once every 6 months, once every 12 months to make sure, oh, I've got this has come up, because it's not just take one pill and you're sorted. I mean, it doesn't work like that. And actually, we know that that doesn't work, because you become, in the medical profession, you become polypharmic. You end up on like 9 different medications, and I'm trying to stop it so that you don't end up on 9 different bottles of herbs. But you might start and then we come down, but it depends. And it doesn't matter either if somebody is on pharmaceuticals already, because one thing with herbal medicine and herbalists and our training is we are trained to know when not to give herbs. We have to, because our license can be taken away from us. Doctors will tell you, now you can't take anything, because they don't understand it. But I have to, and I have to have lots of books in my dispensary room which tell me, okay, I can't, that's contraindicated, that's contraindicated. I have to know, because I'm liable if I gave someone something. So yeah, but it's quite illuminating for, a lot of patients after their first consultation have said, wow, I've never been heard before. And I think that's the big difference with what I do. And it's like herbalists, we listen. I really want to see the whole person. It's not just, patient the other day, it's like lots of stuff going on in her marriage. It's like, this is all impacting on her physical health. It makes a huge difference. It's not like, oh, we're just going to treat this bit and you're going to come and see the cardiologist for your heart. It's like, no, that's not right, because everything is, maybe that heart connects to your nervous system. Oh, we're going to see the neurologist. No, you don't. You just need to see one person who can put it all together and see the holistic picture. And yes, if I need to recommend to see a specialist, that's, of course we can do that, but generally we can see things with holistic eyes. My favorite quote of all time is Marcel Proust, and he says, it is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. And that's often, it's not over here, over here, over here. Maybe it's just about, seeing the whole picture. And that's where we are at with herbal medicine.
I love the idea that you allow for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that my appointments are about 2 hours themselves. Perfect. And people are always so surprised that, an appointment could be so long. They're used to doctors being 15 minutes or, other therapists, being an hour. There's a reason why we allow for this period of time, and it's so that we could really understand and get a full picture of what's happening, and then work with that very effectively. So that's, again, we talk about slow food. Maybe this is slow medicine, because it's taking into consideration the whole of the person. And you were talking about circumstances in a person's life that could be impacting on health. So we wanted to get that emotional landscape and psychological landscape in to understand the body. And heaven knows I've given enough talks on the mind-body connection to see exactly what you're talking about. So this is very exciting, because it's empowering, and it's holistic in the sense that you're looking at the whole person. But I think it's also holistic because we are not seeing the person as being separate from their system, the system that they operate in, which would be their immediate environment with their family, with work, with friends, and then seeing them within the system of nature and perhaps their culture as well, because culture determines what they already believe or don't believe,
totally,
which has a huge impact on a person's outlook. When they first come to see you as a herbalist, when they first come to see me as a hypnotherapist, are they wary or are they excited? This is
totally, depends from whence they came. Exactly, I agree with you 100%.
And it's holistic also from the point of view that we're seeing the person as part of nature. the nature that we see on our planet. And you talk about the lunar cycles. And of course, I'm an astrologer. And that's about understanding that we on this earth are also part of a system. And that has an impact. It's not just, we're very egocentric as human beings. We believe that we are the only things that impact this planet. No, we're not.
That way, doesn't it? Absolutely.
There's a lot that impacts health on this planet, and it's not just us. So we need to see ourselves as part of something bigger than ourselves. And that's why I also love this approach to medicine, because it does exactly that. So it's holistic in every sense of the word.
Yes.
And for people who have been inspired listening to us, and I hope that's everybody, the book that we are talking about is Discovering the Herbs of Summer, Seasonal Medicinal Herbs. In it, you will find wonderful things like information on healing properties of the herbs that Caroline has chosen to feature, medicinal uses, and of course, the folklore and history, which is very wonderful, and recipes for what you could do with these wonderful herbs. And I will be putting a link to this in the description box. And Caroline, if people want to avail themselves of your wonderful services, what do they do?
Oh, well, yes, you can find me online, as everything is. You know, we have to work on the matrix, within the matrix. My business is called Heaven on Earth Herbals.com, and that is www.heavenonearthherbals.com, and you can find me on there. Information about consultation, information about books. I've done the spring, summer, and now we've nearly finished the autumn book quickly just before autumn comes. It's like always like I said, nature is happening quicker. And courses, I've started doing courses this year. I just did my first one in June on the immune system, and now we do anxiety and stress, and more chronic fatigue, all of this long COVID stuff and everything. But yeah, there's lots of stuff that have people really need to know how they can help themselves these days. These long waiting lists that don't lead anywhere on these rabbit holes. No. We need to take our power back and just say, actually, my God, I've been so disconnected. Like you're saying, everything is totally connected. We need to remember that. And we've forgotten. So yes, so if you need a guide on the way, yeah, I can be one of those guides. So yeah, by all means, that's
fantastic. I'll be sure to have a link to your website on the description box as well. Caroline, what a joy it has been to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
And thank you all for watching. And next time, we're going to be looking at somatic wisdom, embodying feeling, and what our body can tell us about ourselves at an emotional level. Until then, goodbye.
Bye-bye.